Everybody, and welcome back to a brand new live stream. Make sure you guys absolutely destroy that like button down below. Make sure you smash that subscribe button and break that bell so you guys never miss another video or stream. And folks, Kevin McCarthy, he is gone. He is ousted. The speaker was speaker for just 7 months, 8 months. It was the shortest tenure we've ever seen for a Speaker of the House since the 1870s. It is over. It is done for. He learned the hard way. He said, yeah, bring it on. Well, they brought it on, and as a result, he's out. He got completely destroyed. He is dejected. He's not running for Speaker of the House again. They're going to elect a new Speaker within the next week or so. We don't know who it's going to be. Now, could the Speaker end up being like a lateral move? Possibly. But either way, what we saw there, even if that ends up being the case, it shows you do not mess around, you do not break your promises, and as a result, you had accountability. And because there's accountability, it is a white pill. And you could say, well, the Democrats are voting for it. This is actually like some reverse 4D chess. This is a bad move. You're stepping on a landmine here. It's like, what's the worst thing that can happen? Like, yes, we need to make sure that we can elect a decent speaker. I understand that. I'm well aware. But still, it doesn't mean that removing McCarthy was necessarily the wrong thing to do. You're going to have to go out there and find a new speaker. That's very true. Nobody's debating that. But still, you have somebody that broke their commitment. You have somebody that just embraces all of the liberal pork nonsense that all the Democrats want to put in the bill. You don't see that going the other way. You don't see Nancy Pelosi running out there, even if there is a Republican president, and just giving Republicans every single thing that they want. That doesn't happen in that case, and this should not happen in this case. So Matt Gaetz is taking a lot of heat. I understand why people would vote no. I understand that they think that there's going to be some negative implications. I'm not going to say primary every single person that voted no, because that would be ridiculous. You'd have to primary most of your solid best representatives. But still, I think it's a good thing that he got removed. And a lot of the people who maybe didn't vote to remove now can look at this and say, hey, okay, well, let's use this opportunity to get a better speaker in there. And yeah, you're going to have your rhinos try to hold it back. I'm well aware. It's going to have to be some compromise pick, but you can get a compromise pick in there that's better than McCarthy. You're not going to get a Democrat as speaker. They're not going to put in somebody like, for example, Don Bacon or one of these Republicans that's in like a deep blue district where they're already at risk of flipping. And if they become Speaker of the House, those seats are going to flip. They're not going to do that. So we'll have to see what happens. Do I expect us to get a speaker, a Speaker Andy Biggs, a Speaker Jordan, a Speaker Gaetz? Of course not. I really don't. It would be great to see, and maybe we could in the future if we get a sizable majority in the House. I'm not saying that we shouldn't work towards that, but still realistically, is the speaker going to be somebody marginally better than Kevin McCarthy? Yeah. Is it going to be somebody like Scalise? Probably. But Scalise is better than McCarthy. I mean, objectively speaking, especially given the fact that he has a vengeance against his political opponents because they literally shot him. They literally shot him 6 years ago. You can bet he's going to fight harder than McCarthy did just based off of that fact alone. And I'm not going to say, oh, he's going to be perfect or he's going to be ideal. But again, it is baby steps, and eventually we're going to be holding his feet to the fire. And then you go down the line, and then you go down the line. But either way, we don't need a House Speaker that, A, is from California, even if he is from a red part of California. But that's not a good look for the Republican Party just as a whole. And B, one who is a total just run-of-the-mill neocon who bends the knee at the most inopportune times. That's what I'll say. And there will be people that will go out there and they will say, well, Donald Trump is sort of on good terms with McCarthy, so why don't you support him? And it's like, I'm not going to support somebody just because Donald Trump supports somebody. I support Donald Trump. That doesn't mean I'm not going to have a disagreement or two with him here and there, as I do with literally every single person in politics. I mean, that's facts. I'm not going to get angry and throw a temper tantrum at every single person for doing one or two things that I don't agree with. Why? Because there's no cult. And now Donald Trump's opinion matters. I think he's an intelligent guy. People don't give him credit for it, but it's true. He is more cunning politically than I think a lot of people give him credit for. So his opinion is worth something. I'm not saying it's not, but at the same time, it doesn't mean it's 100% accurate all the time. Even if I can see where he's coming from, no. And that's the way it is. So I think that you look at this and there's a real possibility you get somebody better in as speaker. You're going to have probably I'm looking down at chat periodically, and everybody is just saying whoever they want as speaker. Is Donald Trump going to become speaker? Probably not. He's running for president. I think that's far more important than being Speaker of the House. If he wasn't running, I think he would be a great choice, because you don't have to be in the House to be Speaker of the House. People are saying Lee Zeldin, despite him not currently being in the House. I think that would be a decent pick overall. First of all, he is pro-Trump. He's going to help Trump win 2024. Two, he is somebody that you look at all the metrics there, he'd be solid and is liked by pretty much everybody. And on top of that, he gave Republicans the House. He basically handed Republicans the House majority in part because his wave was so big, it carried George Santos to victory. It carried all these other people in these districts where most people, even myself, I had Republicans winning the House by more than they did. I think everybody knows that. But even there were like 3 or 4 districts in New York that went Republican that I had going blue. And then Republicans just dropped the ball across the entire Rust Belt, across the Midwest, across a very big portion of the country. But in New York, they got the job done. So if Zeldin ends up becoming speaker, I think it's a good thing, and this would be more than worth it. Will it happen? We'll have to see. It's probably going to be somebody like, Tom Emmer, who is very poor in terms of messaging and strategy, but is he more like staunch conservative on a lot of things compared to somebody like McCarthy? Yeah, overall, I would say he's better. Is he better by a lot? No. I think Scalise would be preferable. There's a lot of people that are preferable to McCarthy, and getting him out of the way is a good thing. It's a good thing that we don't have the leader of our party, the highest ranking official, be somebody who's known for bending over backwards for the opposition, at times even harder than Mitch McConnell. It's not like we're getting anything out of the deal. It's not like, oh, we're going to be giving you more healthcare funding in exchange for more border wall funding. That's not exactly what's happening here. What's happening is they're bending over backwards to send billions of dollars to Zelensky. Is this exactly what we need to do as a country? We hear about the debt. We hear about the debt and how it's a problem from these people, from the people within the Republican establishment. All they talk about is the debt and the deficit, and they can't back it up when they're actually in power to go out there and cut it. That's a little bit of a problem. And that's going to need to change, because these people have zero ground to stand on, because all they do when they get in power is nothing. They don't use their power. They claim we're not going to use it for small government purposes. And then they bend over backwards to the opposition and give them every single thing that they want. Is this exactly something that we need as a party? Absolutely not. I'm sick of the old slogans. This guy is a dinosaur. Get him out. And as a result, they got him out. Matt Gaetz, people are saying, oh, he's like a diva. He's just doing this to boost his own personal presence. But at the same time, I believe he's doing the right thing, because you have to have accountability, whether you think, oh, it could backfire or not. And it's not guaranteed to backfire. If anything, you're going to get somebody in there who is at least marginally better than McCarthy, which is a win. I wish we settled this back in January. We didn't. We're back at it again. So we'll see what happens. It's a little bit of spice in politics, and the month of October and an election off year. So, hey, yeah, we'll see what happens. Hopefully we get rid of McConnell next. I think that's going to have to be reserved for after 2024, though. But still, we'll see. Beyond that point, I think it's important that we get to our advertisement section because, yes, we have a very quick word from our newest sponsors, because China's real estate bubble is absolutely collapsing. In '08, when the subprime mortgage crisis nearly ended modern capitalism, housing was 8% of the U.S. GDP, while housing is 25% of China's. It's an epic meltdown in just the beginning. Meanwhile, in the U.S., inflation is so high that the Federal Reserve is talking about raising interest rates further, choking the credit out of the economy completely. Everything is expensive. Gold's perfect for this environment, but it's near all-time highs already. So I want to present a company called Gold Mining Inc., trading on the New York Stock Exchange under the ticker GLDG. Gold is perfect for this environment. And we know that the reason is that this is a company that trades at multi-year lows, extremely cheap. Their gold resources are only worth $1 an ounce. So if you go to wealthresearchgroup.com/cheap gold, there is an entire presentation explaining how this company is effectively 80% or 90% more discounted than anything out there. If you're bullish on gold, I urge you to stop everything you're doing and download this carefully drafted report now. Link is in the description down below. So enough of that. Let's get back to this. A lot of new developments in politics this week. Whether you're talking about the McCarthy being removed, whether you're talking about Lake running for Senate, RFK Jr. potentially mounting an independent campaign. That's not a segment that we've outlined in this stream, but I'm sure people might be talking about it. And if you guys have questions to keep the discussion going here, please feel free to super chat. So it's good to have a stream with good audio. I know last stream the audio just completely decided to do a 180 and use my camera audio by accident for the first 40 minutes of the stream. And I wasn't looking at chat. I had no idea it was happening. So the stream ended up sadly getting deleted, but it was so bad. I went back and listened to it. I was like, is this worth keeping up? And it was not worth keeping up. So nevertheless, we're back. We got everything going here, even though it's a little bit of a late stream, but I had to do it because McCarthy is gone. Wanted to see what the people think. Feel free to super chat who you think the next speaker should be. If you have any questions, concerns, we'll talk about that. But speaking of questions and concerns, we have a Senate race. Everybody's talking about the big three. We've kind of covered them at length. I've done a video on each of them. We did a video, and technically I did a video in Arizona too, but that was back before we knew who the candidates were really going to be. And we said Blake Masters, like to see him give it another try. Apparently he's not running, but still the big three are Ohio, West Virginia, and the state of Montana. And it does seem as if Republicans, you would say, are favored because it's a presidential year. They're favored in all three of them. Whether you want to say, oh, Ohio's a toss-up, they're favored. It's a presidential year. The senators that are incumbents in all three states, their approval ratings, not exactly too high. Now, I'm not saying you can't take these races seriously. West Virginia, yeah, you can write that off as a victory. Fine, Manchin might not even run. That's going to be an instant flip. But still, Montana, Ohio, it's possible you could just end up winning those because of polarization, because of the massive wave. Trump's probably taking Ohio by double digits. You're probably going to see Brown lag behind Biden by maybe 6, maybe even 4, depending on the nominee. Those are states that we'll worry about, but that's not the end game. That's not the end goal. 52 seats, that's nice. Don't get me wrong. If we finish with that and Trump gets elected and we still drop the ball in a lot of these other places, it's not a bad night overall. But still, you want to maximize the gains. You want to get Arizona. You want to get Nevada. Wisconsin and Michigan are on the table too. Pennsylvania, they're really going to try, but seriously, Casey is not going anywhere, whether you like it or not, until he retires. Dave McCormick is not some electoral juggernaut the way these people think. In fact, he's a horrible fit for the state. He probably should go back to Connecticut and run there because that's where he spent most of his life. You talk about a socially liberal carpetbagger that has some ties to the state, but not really. Is that who you want to run for Senate? You tried that last time around, couldn't even get Fetterman out of there. What makes you think you're going to beat Casey? Because it's a presidential year? Maybe that'll help a little bit with turnout, but is it exactly going to be enough? I don't see it. I don't think so. It would take a massive night, And if that's the case, you're winning Michigan, you're winning Wisconsin. And if McCormick ends up winning, yeah, whatever. I'm not saying it's the end of the world. I'm not saying don't vote for him if he's the nominee, but it's useless. And he's going to go in there and he probably is going to be one of the bigger rhinos in the Senate. And you could say, well, he's from a swing state and technically, Mitt Romney's out of the way. So it's like technically a de facto upgrade in a way. But it's like at the same time, is this our priority? No, because you can get an actual conservative elected in Nevada, Arizona, possibly Wisconsin. We'll see what happens. Michigan, even, you can get a decent candidate there. Craig could win that. So you're looking at these states, and it's like Pennsylvania is down there below Virginia on the list. You look at Hung Cao, it's a long shot, but I think that there's a chance he could pull it off just because he's an excellent candidate, and maybe Virginia's closer at the presidential level because it's a competent state party. You don't have that going for you as much in Pennsylvania. Yes, the Democrats there are relatively broke right now. We know the party's not in the best shape. I did a video on that a couple of weeks ago, but still, there's a lot of focus from these neocons trying to flip Pennsylvania over other more winnable states because they are deluded into thinking that McCormick is the star candidate. And he's really not. If he was such a star candidate, he would have gone out there and he would have defeated Dr. Oz, who apparently didn't even have that many ties either to the state in a primary. And you could say, well, it's Trump's endorsement, whatever. I mean, either way, you couldn't go out there and win. You couldn't go out there and take down Oz in that primary. And it was a three-way primary race. Oz didn't even get a third of the vote with a Trump endorsement. You still couldn't win. You still couldn't cross that finish line because you don't resonate with people. He doesn't. And yeah, he outperformed the polls, but it doesn't matter. Some like moral victory, it's closer than we thought it would be, doesn't count. He didn't win. So Arizona is key. And that's a key Senate race. You're going to need to try to win it. You can take out both Sinema and Gallego because it is a three-way race. This is not, we have 1v1 and it's a popular Democrat or somebody that's polling well in the favorables like Mark Kelly was and who's going to probably outspend you like Mark Kelly did. No, you don't have that. You have a far-left lunatic in Ruben Gallego, and then you have a self-described Prada-socialist who pretends to be a moderate independent, who is not, named Kyrsten Sinema, who is a grifter and a loser all around. She was a Green Party activist. Now she tries to befriend Republicans in the Senate, trying to act like she's getting things done bipartisanly. She barely dilutes Biden's agenda. She barely dilutes it. And even so, it's all for show. You could even credit a lot of that more so to Manchin. She'll sometimes tag along with him because she's trying to get elected in a state that is virtually a toss-up state. She is not a Republican. She is not an independent. She is a Democrat who votes with Joe Biden not 50% of the time, not 60, 70, 80, or 90, or 95, or 99. She votes with Biden 100% of the time. If she was a true independent who dissented, she would vote for him less. Even Joe Manchin votes with Biden like 89, 90% of the time. And you look at somebody even like Bernie Sanders has more votes with Republicans against Biden than Kyrsten Sinema. And you could say he's doing that for different reasons, but it doesn't matter. It has all of the same effect at the end of the day when you think about it. So you're looking at exactly who the Democrats are putting up. They're putting up this lunatic who is going to get a lot of the core Dem votes. And then you'll have Sinema take away the more moderate sides of the Republicans and the Democrats. And those voters, by and large, the moderate McCain Republicans, they don't exist in as big of numbers as people think, for one. And for two, a lot of them probably are not going to vote for Trump. They'll vote third party. A lot of them already voted for Biden back in 2020. I mean, these people are not really Republicans. A lot of them are registered independents, whatever. Fine. They don't matter as much as people think. So you need about 47% to win this race. So I think any Republican who tries and at least gets a decent portion of the party behind them, or at least gets the Trump base behind them, is going to be the favorite. And Kari Lake has decided to enter the race. By the way, Kari Lake ran for governor. She fell short. There were some election day complications that we're not going to talk about, but we're aware of, that she fought in court to no avail. Obviously, a lot of these lawsuits don't really go anywhere because there's no real precedent to overturn them, even if they find out, oh, well, they should have done this thing differently or done that thing differently. It's all moral victories. It's like what happens when you lose a game in the NFL and the referee council comes out after the game and says, oh, that was a bad call. It's like, okay, it was, and they admit it, to some extent. Doesn't mean anything changes. Doesn't mean they're changing the score or replaying the game. And you could say maybe they should, but at the end of the day, you got to at least, understand that there were things you could do differently in a relatively close race to win. And I will say that regarding Kari Lake as well, because, there has to be a change up in strategy for her if she does end up getting the nomination. I don't want to hear about 2020 or 2022. I want to hear about 2024, for one. And for two, I don't want her blocking people on Twitter specifically because they said they would prefer Blake Masters to her for Senate, because there's been several people that have been blocked by Lake on Twitter and her team. So I will say, and I'm giving this as friendly words of advice to her team, the amount of bridge burning needs to be minimal this time around, because the more you burn the bridges, the less chance you have at victory. Doesn't matter how talented you are. Doesn't matter how good of a candidate you are. Doesn't matter how well you deal with the media. You got to, A, know how to play the political game. B, you got to focus on good messaging. And I think if Kari Lake does that, she will be the next senator of the state of Arizona. And if not, who knows what's going to happen, but still. I'm rooting for, I hope she does well. But I will say I don't think that she's above criticism either, because everybody could do something differently, hypothetically, to do better. And her general election campaign, the messaging, I think a lot of people took her victory for granted, and you did have the bridge burning, which I understand. Burning bridges, do it in a lot of states, a lot of deep red areas. You could do it very easily, but Arizona, it's a little bit different kind of, and, you shouldn't have to rely on, oh, well, hopefully the election stuff all runs smoothly in order to come out on top. That's the way I see it. You got to look in the mirror. You got to do things differently. Some people are going to be mad at me for saying that or disagree, and I support Kari Lake. I'm not, obviously we haven't seen how the primary field really unfolds, but if Kari Lake is the nominee, I support her. Yes, I don't think she's above criticism. Yes, I also think she can win. And I also think any Republican who goes out there and shills for Kyrsten Sinema is a loser, because they are losing, and they are better off shilling for Ruben Gallego, because any Republican vote for Sinema is a vote for Gallego to be senator, because Sinema is not becoming senator. She's not. The polls, sometimes the polls will show her with 15%. The early polls in three-way races for these, statewide only races like Senate races, I don't take them as much into account as like national presidential polling this far out. I don't. I mean, even those polls, a lot can change, but still these polls have been too volatile, too contradictory compared to the polls we see between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. But still, anybody who goes out there, Kyrsten Sinema is not some independent. This is what people don't understand. And people are going to criticize Lake, and I might say, yeah, maybe she could do this thing differently. Maybe she could do this thing differently. I'm not going to disagree with that. I think the amount, like the tendency of Lake, I don't know who runs her team, to go out there and block people just because they would prefer Masters instead of her, which Masters is good. She's good. There's no need for this ridiculous beef whatsoever. Obviously, Masters is not going to run for Senate. I think he understands that he's probably not going to beat both Lake and Lamb in a primary. And if Lamb's the nominee, I'll support him as well. It's ironic because Kari Lake wanted Lamb to run for Senate about a year ago, and she also said she was not going to run. Now she's decided to run, which is fine. But either way, just like the ability to go out there and just block people just because, oh, they don't support me, so I'm going to block them. I don't think that's how you're going to win their support over, because you're going to need to do that in order to win elections. That's not electabro coping per se. That's just reality. I mean, it's true. I don't even block all of the people that get paid to reply to my tweets and attack me because I support Donald Trump and I don't support Ron DeSantis. I don't understand why you have people that are running for political office that are just blocking people, unless they're actually like harassing you or sending you harassing or threatening DMs, or they're being, lewd and gross for whatever reason. Then I understand block people. But just for people saying, oh, Masters is not going to, or I prefer Masters to Lake and I vote for both, and people get blocked, which she didn't block me. I think she still follows me. But I don't think that's the right move, and I think it does say something about the mentality. I don't think I'm out of bounds for saying that, because I like Lake, and I want her to do well. She's very talented. She goes to the Senate. She would be one of the best senators. But do I think she's above criticism? No, I don't think anybody's above criticism. I'm not above criticism, for one. I've never said I am. I've criticized myself and some of my past predictions as well. Sometimes they have not been all that accurate for one reason or another, but at the same time, a lot of the people that criticize them now had worse predictions, so I really don't want to hear about it from them. They like to do revisionist history and then cope, and that's sad that that's the way it's going to be. But in terms of the Lake stuff, if she's the nominee, everyone's supporting Lake. I don't care what anybody says, but I will say she's got to be careful about the bridge burning, I would say. And obviously, I know that there's a lot of weak and cringe Republicans out there. A lot of them worked for the campaign of her opponent, who is like a literal demon, Karen Taylor Robeson, awful human being, all around, total rhino, supports Democrats just because Lake supports Republicans in like city council races. It's ridiculous. She supports in-state tuition for illegal aliens. It's a big mess what we see with her. But a lot of her staff, from what I've allegedly heard, voted for Katie Hobbs over Kari Lake, which that's a problem. These people on the Robson team or whatever, they're not exactly good people for doing that. I think it's awful. But the fact that there's like no real ability to, sort of mend that bridge just for the people on the ground, so you might have more support, like that's kind of an issue, because a lot of those people ended up voting for other Republicans down ballot, but they didn't vote for Lake. So it's like, what's going on there? Obviously, it's a problem, but the fact that there's no real effort to build the bridge, because Donald Trump is going to find a way to do that. I mean, he's done it before. He says, I support all the supporters. We welcome you with open arms, whatever. I mean, he even did that for Bernie Sanders supporters in the Midwest back in 2016, mentioning for the trade. So you get trade deals and things like that where they may have had common ground. So you're going to have to find a way to sort of expand the coalition. And blocking people on Twitter, and just like, even like I was attacked even back in 2022. I was probably one of the biggest Lake supporters on Twitter. And I was attacked by the War Room account that she had just because I said Lake is probably going to win the primary, and they got mad, and then they unfollowed me on that account. And it's like, what are you exactly doing? Like, I'm your biggest supporter, and I say you're probably going to win. You don't want to say anything's definite because you always want to, play like you're a little bit down to win. And I mean, the polls were showing Lake up by a lot more than she ended up winning by in the primary and the general as well. So you can't take the victory for granted. You have to work for it. And if you're one of your biggest supporters basically says it's not a guarantee, but even says it's probably going to happen, and you get mad and unfollow, it's a little bit petty. And this is why the bridges, I think, get burned. It doesn't have to be this way. And I think there's time to change the strategy, time to obviously mend it. I think Lake can pivot. She's intelligent. She could do it. But either way, I don't care what happens. She's going to get our support regardless, because we're not having Sinema get in there. We're not having Gallego get in there. And if you have those people getting in there, what you have is you have somebody that's going to be voting with Biden 100% of the time. 100%. Not 50 or 60, 100%. Lake is going to be somebody who will go to the Senate and be probably one of the best senators we'll have. I will say that. And if Lamb gets the nomination, I'll support him too. I'm not exactly going to make a primary endorsement. I mean, it's too early to see how it shakes out. Masters changes his mind, jumps back in. Well, he'll have my support too. So we'll see. But either way, all the Lake slander from the neocons, absolutely just insane that these people would call themselves Republicans or conservative and they'll vote for Sinema because Lake is mean. Lake hurt my feelings. It's like, okay, you know what? Get over it. Grow a spine. That's how these things work. Like, yeah, there are things Lake could do differently. I've outlined them in this stream. But at the same time, the pettiness of these people, and they're like, ha, we lost. It's like, well, maybe because you didn't do enough to support the nominee, despite you claiming that we're not the team players, maybe you need to be a team player. That's the way it works. It's ironic because you look at the people who overperform the most, and it's the people that don't alienate really either wing of the party. And you could say even DeSantis fell into that camp before he decided to end his career because of a delusional lie that he can go out there and beat Trump, that his 105 IQ consultants have basically egged him on to do. So that's a take on it. There's no way around it. We're in the fight. We're in the fight here, and we don't have Kevin McCarthy anymore. So super chats, we have several super chats here. Brandon Sakura says, does Trump get questioned? Terrible endorsement. Yeah, he gets questioned. Everybody gets questioned. I don't think that it was a good endorsement for him to make. I think there were better options out there. Now, at the end of the day, I think Trump knew that McCarthy was going to get the speakership no matter what, obviously, but that doesn't mean I would have made the endorsement if I was him. Polite Rude Guy says they should nominate me, John Tavar, as speaker. Thanks for the super chat. Sam Madsen says Emmer's worse than McCarthy. I'd say they're probably about the same. I mean, Emmer may be worse, relatively speaking, if you're from the state of Minnesota, because he's been there for a while. But either way, I'd say it's a relative lateral move. I think Emmer gets a lot of hate, rightfully so, because he was largely responsible with bungling 2022, which is why I don't really want him to get it over somebody like Scalise, because he played a big role in the underperformance with the horrendous messaging strategy that he put out there. Cooper S. says Troy Nels has nominated Donald Trump as... Yeah, I saw the tweet. I'm not entirely sure if there's any real chance it's going to happen. I don't believe it will. I don't think Trump would want it because he's campaigning for president. I don't think that he wants to be Speaker of the House right now. I think he'd see it as a little bit of a downgrade. Beyond Reality says Speaker Trump. Same response to that. Real Texan Politics says, seems like it's not just illegal immigrants invading the Houston area, but so are Illinois liberal Republicans like Adam Kinzinger, who now lives in the Woodlands. Very sad. Don't let him turn Texas. Well, I think that overall he's not going to go anywhere. Everybody hates the guy. He'd be better off being a Democrat and running for like a blue seat somewhere. Sam Matson said Emmer voted for gay marriage when McCarthy didn't. Well, I'm actually surprised McCarthy didn't vote for that bill, but I'd say you look at all their votes, you chalk them all up, you count it up, you look at the side by side, they're probably relatively about even is what I'm saying. They're relatively about even. I think foreign policy, McCarthy would be worse. And also talk about the tendency to give in to liberal pork overall in spending, because that's largely what it comes down to. They hide a lot of things in these bills. You talk about a mileage tax that was in, a pilot program for a mileage tax. That was in one of those bills, I think, last year, early on. And on top of that, you see they'll put all these little things in there for, the gender identity for kids stuff. They'll put everything in there one way or another. It's going to be coded. And then if you vote against this bill for one reason or another, they're going to be questioning you. It's mainly because, you read the bill, you read the whole entire fine print. There's a lot in those big omnibus spending type of bills that are our liberal pork, and that's what you can't exactly give into. So there's a lot that McCarthy signed off on as well. Captain Beefheart says, need a new speaker because Christie ate McCarthy. Yeah, it's not good. Base Cato says, Chunk Yogurt says, but force the vote. Well, isn't he trying to run for president or something? That's the last thing I heard about Cenk, was he wanted to run for president. Except he was born in Turkey. How can you run for president if you're born in Turkey? It's not like he even has parents that happen to be American or anything like that. So the guy's a delusional moron who is still the same guy he was back in 2016 during those election night meltdowns. He's the same. He really is the same. And hopefully he'll melt down again in 2024. But except this time, even he's like melting down already. He's like, well, the Democrats, they need to get rid of Biden because Biden's going to lose. And he's right. It's funny. And they might actually try to do that. I don't know. It's still too early to really tell. Cooper S., or I guess Schlickaw, says Schlickaw is how my name is pronounced. Well, thank you. Sometimes I butcher the long last names that are complicated, so I just don't say it sometimes just initial it. But now I know. Thank you, Cooper. Very cool. All right, we're 36 minutes in. We got 600 live viewers. So Trump is hitting new records, by the way. I think it's important we talk about that because you look at the polls. It just every day, every single day, there's a new high for Trump and there's a new low for Ron DeSantis, because we constantly hear about Iowa. Iowa's where DeSantis is focusing all of his energy on. Iowa's where he got like 30% of the state legislators to endorse him, and now he's acting like that's some big deal where he could sit back and take a victory lap about it as if it's something that's actually going to change anything, which it's not, because Trump is still that guy. And everybody knows it. Trump's not even focusing that much energy on Iowa. He is running a national campaign. DeSantis can sit up there and say, you don't run a national campaign. Well, I mean, you're looking at this, and it's like, honestly, how's that going out for you? How's it working out for you in Iowa? Because you're looking at Iowa. This is his internal poll. This is not some pro-Trump poll. It's his own internal poll, which is utter dog shit, by the way. The same polling firm that caused Mitt Romney to be lazy and lose the 2012 presidential election. The same polling firm. POS Strategies. It's a fitting name. It basically stands for piece of shit. Obviously it doesn't, but still, read between the lines. It's a very fitting acronym for that awful pollster. And it shows that Ron DeSantis is currently behind Donald Trump in Iowa, supposedly his best state, where he's going to have his best showing. He's down by 31 points. And now you hear internal buzz from these people. They're like, well, a close second in Iowa is actually what we're shooting for, and we can actually get that. And it's like, even if you somehow get your ideal close second in Iowa, you're not winning New Hampshire. You are not winning South Carolina, especially with Haley and Scott out there. You're not going to win the state of Nevada. So Iowa is where you have to make your statement, which I'll agree with them on that. But if they get a close second, it's officially over. If Trump wins Iowa at all, that primary is pretty much over, especially because then it's going to be wrapped up by Super Tuesday. But either way, DeSantis' campaign is in shambles. There's a very good chance he doesn't even get second place in Iowa at the rate that he's going, despite putting all of his time and all of his energy and money in Iowa. It's not working. He's down by 31 in his own internal poll, which means he's probably down by 41. He's down by over 40 in the state of Iowa. And you look at the national poll, that's the worst for Donald Trump, consistently puts out polls that have him lagging behind the other polls. It shows him up by 35 points. 35, not 25, 35. The other polls that are coming out have him up by over 50 points. And the same poll, it shows Trump up by 35. That's a net gain of 8 points since the month of August. So you're looking at all of these polls. They indicate the same thing. Trump is on the rise. Folks, they've indicted him 4 times. He's been indicted 4 times. It doesn't matter. It is bouncing off of him completely, and it is absolutely beautiful to watch. And DeSantis, all of his little smug consultants and paid shills on Twitter, they have no way to spin this. They have no way to spin any of the numbers other than, I'm going to cope. I'm going to tweet, DeSantis will win Iowa. And it's not going to work. We are closer to Iowa, far closer to Iowa than the announcement of the DeSantis campaign. We are 3 months away and like a week or two on top of that from Iowa. 3 months, in the past would be July. So we're closer to the Iowa caucuses than we are to like late June. And DeSantis has completely nosedived. Even from then, when he already had been nosediving, it's over. There's no way around it. It's only going to get worse from here. And obviously, you could say the polls are wrong. But usually, if the internal polls, there's no internal poll that's going to be off by 31 points. If that internal poll is supposed to prop up that specific candidate, it doesn't exist. And things can change. But they've been changing. But they've been changing the other way. You can reboot. You can regroup. The bottom line is people see this guy. They do not like this guy. They do not like him. They might like the idea of him. Maybe they want a window shop. They understand, well, maybe we need new blood. This guy's been claiming he's getting things done. It doesn't work that way. He has absolutely zero ability to connect with the average voter. I don't care how much you win Florida by. Florida's not Iowa. And governors are not people that are the same caliber as presidential candidates all the time. He is a system quarterback who was carried by Trump in 2018 in the primary, and he sent down a lot of help for the general, which he credited in one of his books, but then he decides recently to say Trump held him back. What a fool. What a clown. System quarterback governor. He's got a state legislature that will send him pretty much anything. And even then, they have some issues. They're not like all that conservative all the time. They are overrated. The state party's competent, which is good. But other than that, he's a system quarterback governor. He's not an electoral juggernaut on his own nationwide. And we've seen him at the national level. He was nothing special, to the point where how is this guy going to go out there and take on Trump when he doesn't really have a quality that a lot of people can look at and point to and say, hey, this guy should be president. Oh, why? Because he signed some bill and is governor? Some remedial legislation that was rubber stamped and sent it to him by the overwhelming majority that Republicans have in the Florida state legislature? System, quarterback, governor, everybody's seeing it. And as a result, Trump is just going out there and utterly destroying him without even really attacking him all that much. People say, well, Trump's been attacking DeSantis relentlessly. When Trump started attacking DeSantis' numbers, ironically enough, went up. But then they got acquainted with DeSantis, and then they realized, hey, wait, Trump's attacks are actually accurate. He does have no charisma. He is actually unelectable on certain policy, which is ironic because the people propping him up are claiming otherwise. So, yeah, bye-bye. Incompetence. This is what it is. It's incompetence coming from the same people that claim that Trump is incompetent or this wing of the party is incompetent. So we'll see. Garrett Vranikar says, any news on the Pennsylvania Supreme Court race? I haven't really seen much. I saw one poll that had a lot of undecideds and the liberal candidate was below 50. So I don't know. I think, like I said, these off-year court elections, especially in the post-Roe era, we still have work to do before we really start turning the corner on them, especially in a state like Pennsylvania that's razor thin at the national level. Real Texan Politics sent a member chat saying the funny thing about the POS poll is that the DeSimps will say it's fake because it doesn't have their boy up like the totally real Ron polling. Yeah, I've seen this phenomenon on Twitter where they will post these fake polls from an obviously fake polling firm and say, these are the real polls. And they come up with them out of thin air. It's ridiculous. Apex Caliber says, I dare them to arrest Trump for criticizing the judge. Yeah, they can't do that. Carter W. says, should Trump's main priority be appointing replacements for Alito and Thomas? Well, it's possible, especially if they get that Senate majority. They might want to get on that because they're not getting any younger. And if Trump doesn't pull it off somehow, they possibly could wait another 4 years if you do have a Republican president after that. But we can't think about that. We can't think about losing. But we can also take winning for granted. It's like kind of like one of those things where you don't really see it as an option not winning, but at the same time you have to pretend like you're, 5 points behind just so you win. You have to work hard for it. You can't take winning for granted. You can't do it. That goes for everybody, and that goes for everything as well. So let's see. John Waffle H2P says Trump pretty much already won. DeSantis is a proven rhino. I don't like throwing the terms around like that all the way. And people are going to be like, you can't say rhino because you said DeSantis was a good governor and you praised him here and there. So I will say he is an establishment Republican. I do think there's a difference between a all-out rhino and an establishment Republican. I don't like either for different reasons. And you look at somebody like DeSantis, he sold out to the donors that back and fund the rhinos, which leads me to believe that if he were to get into the White House, these people said Trump fell short in a lot of areas. Imagine how many areas DeSantis is going to fall short in. Do you think DeSantis would have done anything that these people criticize Trump for doing? If you told these electabros back in 2020, if you started to criticize Trump the way the DeSantis people criticize Trump in a lot of ways, what would they exactly say? They would say, well, he's going to lose the election if he does this thing with COVID. He's going to, this is cruel if he cracks down on the riots. This is cruel. You can't do that. This is what these people would have said. And ironically enough, the same people that were advising Trump have the same mindset of these people. The worst Trump advisors that are now gone have the same mindset as the DeSantis people. It's ridiculous, but it's true. And they're holding back the party. It's a major problem. They're holding back the movement. We can't let them do that. Telos Bounce says, Christ is king. Thank you for the super chat. Absolutely true. Absolutely true. And we're talking, it seems like every single stream about the polls, but every single stream that we do, there's a new poll that comes out that's better. And there's a new poll that comes out that's worse for DeSantis. So we're going to keep doing it. I mean, what is exactly going to change? I mean, there's a chance that he falls to third in Iowa because donors are still backing Haley. This one poll shows him almost falling to third nationwide. And Haley at 14, he's at 15. He's much lower in much of the other polls. So you look at the big grand scheme of things, it's like absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. But 2024, we're on the verge. We really are. And you see what's ever happening in the House right now. It's crazy. And then people, I'm sure, are going to want to hear me talk about the RFK Jr. running as an independent. I did a video on it. Who does it impact? I think it impacts maybe Biden a little bit more if things change. Because if Trump has to deal with RFK Jr., obviously, a lot of the people that like RFK Jr. now are Trump supporters, but if he attacks RFK Jr. once or twice, that changes because Trump can change the narrative. He can bring things to the forefront that are not brought to the forefront. He has that ability. He can manipulate the media. Somebody like DeSantis, on the other hand, if he was the nominee and RFK Jr. was running third party, you'd have a lot of these disaffected type of Trump supporters flock to him, and it would absolutely hurt DeSantis a lot in the general election. It would, because you have a lot of these anti-establishment, independent type of voters. Those are the voters that if you have a establishment-friendly Republican nominee, those are the voters that would either stay home or they'd vote for somebody like an RFK Jr. So with Trump on the top of the ticket, I would say, if anything, it could take more away from Biden. It could just be, he could just serve as a protest vote the way that Gary Johnson did for a lot of people back in 2016. And you could say that hurt Trump more because certain polls will show it doing that, and then certain polls will have the opposite effect. Either way, looking at the chunk of third-party support as a whole that was in like the state of Minnesota, New Hampshire, Michigan, I would say overall it helped Donald Trump. Did it help him a ridiculous amount? No, it doesn't take away from the glory of his 2016 victory, but did it serve to help him somewhat? Yes. And it probably will serve to help him once again. And I look forward to seeing that in 2024. Because keep in mind, Biden's approvals, Biden's favorable rating, it's off a cliff from where it was back in 2020. It's lower than Hillary's was back in 2016. So he's weaker than Hillary and has a record that he's running from. And Trump is stronger than he was back in 2016 in terms of his favorable rating. It's probably going to go up because he's being attacked so much by his own party that when that ends, he's probably going to go from like 40% favorable to 43, 44 after the convention. Biden's already got, his party behind him pretty much, and he's just staying there at 40 because people just don't like him. They don't like his presidency. They don't like what he's doing to this country. It's embarrassing. Garrett Vranikar says, what do New Jersey Republicans have to do to have a shot at winning the Senate race against Bob Menendez? Well, they probably are not going to be able to win that race, to be honest. First of all, you do a lot better if Menendez was the nominee. No, I don't think putting Chris Christie's very obese self out there is going to help Republicans, given the fact that he left office with a 9% approval rating statewide, 9%. So you look at that, and it's like he'd have to eat every single Democrat in the state just to even have a glimmer of hope, a very slim chance. And even then, he still wouldn't win by that logic. But no, either way, all jokes aside, I don't think Christie would win it. I don't think anybody would win it. I really don't. I think that those races are not governor's races. Governor's races are more elastic. Senate races, typically, maybe you see a lag behind a few points here and there. But unless you're like in a state like Maine, or maybe even Alaska, or just one of those weird states that loves to split tickets, you're probably not exactly going to see a ridiculous split or a split enough, especially during a presidential year, to take out somebody like Menendez there. So we'll see. We've been live for 52 minutes, 52, and we probably are going to end in about 8 minutes or so. I wanted to do an hour. I know it's late. It's late for a lot of people. But either way, this is a big news day. Lake's running for Senate. Hopefully, Republicans don't. And I don't think Republicans will actually vote for Sinema if they're voting for Trump at the end of the day. But you see people saying they will. A lot of people, they're honestly just brain dead. There's no excuse for that. You don't have to vote for Lake in the primary. You don't have to. You can vote for Lamb. Do what you need to do. But when it's crunch time, general election, if you're going to sit there and be petty, you're not a team player, and you have zero right to talk about the MAGA wing of the party for not being team players. You have zero right to do that. You have zero right to talk about the candidates. You suck at putting up candidates that are solid because you can't even win a primary. And you claim your candidates are going to win a general? There absolutely is some sort of correlation there. Because if you consistently are unable to connect with your own base, you're not going to connect with the party at large. It's not about necessarily running a campaign in a general election that happens, oh, this guy's going to be more moderate, he's going to win. It doesn't always work out that way. It doesn't. You have to be competent. That's what works out. And if you're competent, you will win a primary and you will win a general. That's how elections are won. It's true. Yes, there are candidates who lose primaries who probably would have done a couple of points better or so here and there, but usually that's not the case. Usually it doesn't tend to be that way. I mean, you could point to Delaware back in 2010, that Senate race there. Like, yes, absolutely. Which it's ironic because the candidate the Tea Party supported ended up supporting Hillary Clinton and lost that race in Delaware, while the candidate that was supported more by the electobro types at the time, which likely didn't exist because Twitter really wasn't a thing back then, at least as much as it is now. But that guy, he ended up supporting Trump in 2016. So it's ironic how that shaked out, and you probably would have had a decent Republican that would be an electoral juggernaut in Delaware had that gone differently. But other than that example, I really just don't see it. And even then, the Republican candidate that got that nomination still technically outperformed how Republicans usually perform in the state. But still, that's a rare exception to the rule, more so than not. A lot of these candidates that lost the primaries in 2022, they would have absolutely lost. And in many cases, they polled worse. Like Karen Robeson polled worse consistently against Hobbs than Lake polled against Hobbs. And you see the same thing across the entire country. You saw the same thing with some of these candidates in Pennsylvania, so these candidates in Wisconsin, wherever you name it. So they just don't understand how politics works. If they're like, oh, my candidate would have totally won. It's like, no, you're just delusional, you're coping, and you're not really helping the party out at large. You're just not. So Garrett Varadkar says, how much does Trump have to win the popular vote by to carry candidates like McCormick? I think he'd have to win by at least 3 in Pennsylvania, which means he's probably winning the popular vote by 1 to 2. So I don't know. And even though the polls show him up in the popular vote right now, at the end of the day, is he still going to be up? Maybe not, but does he need to be? Not necessarily. Not to win. You can win with you can win without a popular vote victory. You absolutely can. I mean, it's an electoral college, first and foremost, that dictates everything. It's not the popular vote. I mean, people tend to get this confused. A lot of people just want to win it for bragging rights. I would rather just win. You're not playing a game, or you're not exactly playing a game where you win based off of how many hits you get. It's about how many runs you get, where it counts. That's what matters. I'm pretty sure that they used that analogy back in 2016 when the Cubs, I don't think they had the largest amount of runs in that World Series, but they won enough games to win it all. That's all that counts. That's the scoreboard, more so than, oh, well, actually, it's a total popular vote. I don't think there's a single nation in the world that's as big as ours that conducts an election by popular vote. I mean, it'd be nice to have, don't get me wrong, we can have those bragging rights, but first and foremost comes victory. That's the way I see it. So, all right, 2 minutes. This will be the last call for Super Chats. We'll take a look at regular chat as well, but this is the last call for Super Chats right now. Let's see. In a four-way, yeah, you're not going to see a four-way race for president. I mean, it is true that maybe you could say that the total percentage of the vote you need to win decreases with all of these third parties. I agree with that, but it's not going to be a Ross Perot size third party taking 20% of the vote away. I mean, you might see a combined 8% or so, which would be huge, but I don't exactly know if it would be enough. George W. Bush law. Exactly. Bush almost won the popular vote while losing the or he almost lost the electoral college while losing the popular vote. Or while winning the popular vote. I mean, if you see 60,000 voters change their mind in Ohio, that's what would have happened. Would I do a video about actual candidate quality? I absolutely would. That would be a very, very good video to do. Would America be better off if Ross Perot won? Possibly, yeah. I mean, he was pretty solid overall. I mean, there were some things where he wasn't like that socially conservative on, but like he was an economic nationalist. He probably would have been tougher on immigration than your average Republican would have been even. I mean, he was kind of like in a way the proto-Trump, but he didn't have the X factor going for him. Trump's kind of a mix of Buchanan and Perot in a way. Leon Alfaro says, with McCarthy gone, are we witnessing the MAGA movement? Well, we're witnessing people being held accountable, which is technically part of that. It's part of like the whole drain the swamp type of thing, which is why I think Trump should support this, but he's not. But either way, he's got a lot to focus on with the presidential election. So let the nature take its course in the House. Let's see. I don't think we have any more super chats. We're going to end the stream. We're going to end the stream right now. But anyways, guys, it's been a good little hour here. Late stream, I know. But big news day, big news week. And I'll be back with a video tomorrow. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this stream. Like this stream down below. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the bell. I'll see you guys next time. Red Eagle out.